All right, and the Most High is not dealing with those other nations. All right, not at all, not partially, not a little bit, nothing at all. All right. Next one is Ruth, a stranger. It says Ruth. This is the book of Ruth 2:10. Then she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground and said unto him, Why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? Now the word stranger there is what? Nakarya. And then the reason why it has the ha at the end is because it's feminine. You know? And not every time you see a ha at the end of a word makes it feminine. Like in the Most High's name and in some of the prophets' names. Alright? You have to know how to distinguish. Don't be a dickhead. And I'm saying it like that because you got guys out there that are just plain stupid. Alright? So the ha at the end either makes it feminine, either as pertaining to a female or a woman, or sometime when it pertains to the earth. Like when we read before, a stranger in a strange land, the word Nakarya had the ha at the end because it was pertaining to the land. And anytime you pertain or speak about a particular land, it's always feminine. Alright, so that's Nakarya, stranger. That was for Ruth. Alright. And now the next one is Israel separated from strangers. This is Nehemiah 9:2. And the seed of Israel separated themselves from all strangers, and stood and confessed their sins and the iniquity of their fathers. Now here it says Makal Banya Nakar. Makal is from all, Ma is from or of, Kal is all, Banya is son or sons, and then Nakar is strangers. So these are the actual strangers that Israel separated themselves from. So we really were never supposed to mingle with these strangers. You know, not at all. Now the only thing that Israel was able to do is they could have concubines, but Jake was treating them women of the other nations like if they was, you know, their actual women of their nation. You know, marrying them, and you know, Jake, man, Jake is he's just weak to women. Period. All right, the next frame, Nehemiah cleansed Israel from the strangers. Nehemiah 13:10. Now you gotta remember this, right? Here it is. The Most High gave law, statutes, and commandments. He gave examples of certain things that were taking place back then, and he separated Israel from the other nations. And he makes it clear that the other nations are not going to receive salvation. But then you got these other guys that say that the nations can be saved. It's madness. You know, but like I said, some of them are blind. You know, some of them are just blind because the Lord blinded them. Some of them are just straight up demons. And some of them have been paid off to try to upset the prophecies. But they're not going to upset the prophecies. And they're not going to stop the work of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Alright, so this is Nehemiah cleanse Israel from strangers. Nehemiah 13:30. Thus cleansed I them from all strangers, and appointed the wards of the priests and the Levites, every one in his business. What do you have here? Makal Nakar. Makal from all, Nakar, strangers. Alright. Excuse me, just to let you know that the difference. Alright, now the next frame, King David sent strangers away. This is 2 Samuel 15:19. And like I said, if you brothers want to get, I'm just going through these particular scriptures just to get, you know, to show you the difference in the Hebrew words for stranger. Now, if you brothers really want to get the full understanding of what was taking place in this chapter, I suggest you go back and you read it. That way you can know, okay, this is what was happening, and this is why King David said this particular thing here. Alright, 2 Kings 15:19. Then said the king to Attai the Gittite, Wherefore goest thou also with us? Return to thy place and abide with the king, for thou art a stranger and also an exile. So what do we have here? Nakarya. Alright, that's the actual stranger. Alright, so that lets you know that there were certain men that were with King David that were called Hittites, and they were called different, you know, names. He never called them strangers. Why? Because they weren't strangers. But this particular guy here, he was an actual stranger. How do we know? Because he just told him. Alright. Next one is, this is the Song of David. 2 Samuel 22:45. Strangers shall submit themselves unto me. As soon as they hear, they shall be obedient unto me. What do we have here? Ban Nakar. Son or sons of stranger. Banya. It should be really Banyam Nakar. or really Banyam Nakaryam, sons of strangers. You know. So bottom line is, them other nations, they were just made to be servants. Now here, this is where like we were saying to you before, these Masoretes, there were certain words that they changed, even in the Hebrew, because they were the ones that translated the Hebrew text that we got today. They're the ones that translated it. So there were certain words, certain key words that if they would have left those words the way they were supposed to be, there would be no confusion today as to who was to be saved. But once again, the Most High put stumbling blocks out there for a purpose and for a reason. Now, in this scripture here, this is one of the scriptures that these dickheads, like, I ain't even gonna mention no names. I just leave it at that. That these guys use out there that try to bring the other nations into the fold. Right now, I'm gonna read this. Then you'll understand what I mean. It says, "Son of stranger," word should be gar. All right. Now that's a key. That's a key fact. Isaiah 56:3. "Neither let the son of the stranger that hath joined himself to the Lord speak, saying, The Lord hath utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuch say, Behold, I am a dry tree." Now what do you have there for stranger? Ban hanakar. Now the word that should have been there is gar, because we read where the actual strangers can't eat the Passover, and then we're going to read other scriptures where there were certain laws that were that you could do to those people, to those strangers, that you couldn't do to Israel. So now how all of a sudden here in this scripture is it going to bestow favor upon the actual heathen? That's just like the situation with the Deuteronomy 23:7 issue, where it says, "Thou shalt not abhor Edomite," which that's not the word that's there. The word that there is Syrian. But then in every scripture in the Bible, whenever it speaks about Esau, it speaks about something negative against him in a future judgment, and about him being wicked. But then in just that one little scripture, it said, okay, but you got to do this to him. You can't abhor him. That doesn't make no sense. Why? Because they changed that the same way they changed this. And the same way they changed this word here from gar to nakar is the same way they changed certain other scriptures from gar to nakar also. And we'll show you an example of that. Right? So this is here when it says, "Neither let the son of the stranger that has joined himself to the Lord speak, saying, The Lord hath utterly separated me from his people." And then they'll read the word "his people," and then they'll say, "Oh, see, that's talking about Israel." They have no clue and no understanding. And the last scripture in this lesson will tie it all together. So I don't want to jump to that verse just yet. So the last scripture in there will tie it, why they say here, "separated me from his people," because that's what was happening back then. Whenever Jake left from Israel, and they didn't come back every year and keep the law, statutes, and commandments, they were considered to be heathens. And the thing about it was that the Jews that were there, the rest of the Israelites that were there, did not accept them. That's why I said that they received their rights, so to speak, but it was conceded. It was grudgingly, like, you shouldn't have it. That's how they received it. All right, now let's go from there to the next scripture. This is "son of stranger," word should also be gar. And this is another one. This is the same chapter, but this is a different verse. Isaiah 56:6. "Also the sons of the stranger that join themselves to the Lord to serve him, and to love the name of the Lord, to be his servant, every one that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and taketh hold of my covenant." Now the word here is wabanya hanakar, which the word should be gar, which is stranger, which is an Israelite foreigner. Alright, because they the only ones that can join themselves unto the Lord. Now in the kingdom, once the kingdom is established, the other nations are going to have to keep the laws, but they're still going to be heathens. So this right here is talking about an Israelite foreigner that became strange. But then, like I said, once again, these Masoretes, when they got a hold of the scriptures, that's what they did. They changed certain words. All right. Now let's move on to the next one. All right, that's that one. All right, bear with me 1 second. Now I have here a couple of laws that there's certain things that you could do to certain strangers that you couldn't do to Israel. All right. Now this here says give bad meat to the stranger. Word should be nakar. No, because this right here, this law right here, the other nations you were able to sell bad meat unto them, but you weren't able to sell bad meat unto Israel. That's why I put up here, give bad meat to stranger. Word should be nakar. Now check this out, Deuteronomy 14:21. You shall not eat of anything that dieth of itself. Thou shalt give it unto the stranger that is in thy gates, that he may eat it, or thou mayest sell it unto an alien. Alright, for thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy power. Thou shalt not see the kid in his mother's milk. So you weren't supposed to sell bad meat to Israel, or something that would die of itself. You could sell it to the other nations, but now when you look at the word stranger here, that's the wrong word. They have the word gar, lagar, or gar, which means sojourner, which that's the word that's usually used for Israelite foreigner. But then when you look at the word alien, or an alien, it says la nakarya, to alien. Alright, or to stranger. Alright, that's where you see a la nakarya, to stranger. So this right here is showing you that there's certain laws that you can do unto a heathen of another nation, but that you can't do to Israel. You know, and then there's other scriptures where the word stranger is used, where it bestows benefits upon that stranger. Why? Because they're Israelite foreigners, and eventually in the future, like I said before, all of us were going to become strange, you know, to the law, statutes, and commandments of the scriptures. But now we're being brought back. That's the reason for the grafting in the book of Romans 11th chapter. Now the next law, or the next frame, is lend usury to stranger. Deuteronomy 23:20. Unto a stranger thou mayest lend upon usury, but unto thy brother thou shalt not lend upon usury, that the Lord thy power may bless thee in all that thou settest thine hand to in the land, whether thou goest to possess it. So you see here the word for stranger is la nakarya. La nakarya, to stranger. So they're showing you that there's certain key verses in certain laws where it's plain of what the Most High intended these strangers really to do, and there's certain laws that is intended for Israel that became strange, and there's certain laws that's intended for the actual strangers or the heathens of the other nations. You know, and as you can see within these two laws here that we just read, that the other strangers did not share what Israel shared. You know, because they were not of that nation, and they were not going to receive salvation. They never were meant or intended to receive salvation, and they never will. That's why King David said that those nations are going to be submitted to him. You know, because they're going to be the ones that's going to build up our walls. If you have a kingdom, you have to have servants. You can't just have a kingdom without servants. And who's going to play the part of the servant? Not another Israelite. You know, it's going to be the other nations.